The rain hammers the cabin roof like it's trying to tear the old boards apart. Water slips through the log seams, turning the room into a cold, shaking box. Elias Turner pulls his rough wool cloak tight, watching his wife and 2 kids curled together on the straw bed. The woodpile is empty. The storm has buried the forest in sheets of rain. No one's getting firewood tonight. No wood, no flame, no modern heat. But frontier families had their own ways to survive nights like this. And tonight, Elias needs every one of them. Elias kneels and presses his palm against the packed earth floor. It's cold, a little damp, but the air is still here, far calmer than the log wall that's taking the full beating of the rain. Every frontier cabin has a weak side, and tonight, the storm has found his. With each gust squeezing through the log seams, the temperature near that wall drops like a stone. If the kids sleep anywhere close to it, the cold will steal their warmth faster than they can make it. But old frontier families learned something simple. The safest place in a storm is the lowest, quietest corner of the room, the spot the wind can't reach. Elias lifts the straw mattress with both hands and drags it across the floor, feeling for the place where the drafts fade. Beside the thickest section of the opposite wall, he finds it. A still pocket of air, warmer by just a few degrees, but enough to matter on a night like this. He spreads a wool blanket under the straw to keep the earth's moisture from creeping upward. Then he settles the bedding tight against the heavy logs, using the wall as a natural windshield. It isn't cozy, it isn't comfortable, but survival isn't about comfort. It's about choosing the ground that works with you instead of against you. And the payoff comes quickly. The wind slows. The earth holds a bit of heat. His body stops trembling. But the floor is only one enemy tonight. The wet wool on his back is another, and it's stealing heat fast. Elias feels the cold sinking through his clothes the moment he settles beside the wall. His wool coat is soaked through rainwater, still clinging to every fiber from the sprint back to the cabin. Wet wool can be a friend or an enemy frontier. Families knew that better than most. Used right, it traps heat, even when damp. Used wrong, it steals warmth from the chest faster than a winter wind. He strips off the outer layer, wringing it hard until streams of cold water hit the dirt floor. Then he hangs it near the driest stretch of wall, letting time do what fire cannot tonight. The inner wool shirt clings to his skin, coarse but warm. Frontier settlers depended on this exact setup, 2 layers pressed close to the body, creating a thin pocket of trapped air that heats up with every breath and every heartbeat. Elias pulls his scarf tight around his neck, sealing off the draft that keeps slipping through the cabin seams. Then he reaches for a thick scrap of fabric, an old flour sack stitched into a wrap, and winds it around his belly and shoulders. Not pretty, but pioneers weren't chasing pretty. They were chasing survival. And in weather like this, every thread matters. The change comes quickly. The warmth gathers. The damp shifts outward. His breathing steadies. Wool may itch like the devil, but tonight it's loyal. A quiet kind of armor, a fabric that refuses to quit even when it's wet. But the ground under him is still cold, cold enough to pull heat from all 4 bodies if he doesn't fix it soon. Warm clothes can buy time, but the earth always collects its due. Elias steps into the small shed attached to the side of the cabin, pushing the door open against the weight of the rain. The smell hits him first, dry straw, old, and sun-bleached, the last bundle left from autumn chores. Frontier families had a name for it, the poor man's furnace. Not warm by itself, not glowing like a fire, but steady, dependable. A kind of warmth that didn't care whether the storm outside had stripped the forest bare. He drags the sack toward the doorway, then back inside the cabin. The moment his boots touch the dirt floor again, he feels that the earth has grown colder, the kind of cold that climbs upward slow, but relentless, hunting for a spine or a rib cage to sink its teeth into. Wet soil doesn't just chill the skin, it steals. It pulls warmth out of a man the way a river pulls heat from a drowning log. If his family lies directly on it, they'll lose half their body heat in minutes. There's no surviving a whole night like that. This is where straw earns its reputation. Every stalk is hollow-packed with tiny air pockets. And air still air is the best insulation nature ever made. Frontier settlers figured that out long before they ever learned the science. A 3 to 5 centimeter layer of dry straw can cut the cold faster than any blanket they could afford. It was the cheapest, simplest barrier between a family and the unforgiving earth beneath them. Elias tears open the sack and starts spreading the straw in 2 careful layers. First, the bottom layer. Coarse, stiff stalks goes down directly onto the dirt. It crunches under his hands as he presses it flat, building a wall between the cold ground and the softness above it. This layer has only one job: stop the moisture and stop the ground from siphoning warmth. Then the upper layer, softer straw, the kind that bends instead of snapping, gets scattered across the top. This part isn't just a barrier. It's comfort, the difference between a back that seizes up from the chill and a back that relaxes enough to sleep. The kids are watching him now, eyes wide, shivering under the dim lantern light. He reaches for a wool blanket patched rough but still warm and spreads it over the straw bed he's made. Wool on top, straw in the middle, packed earth below. 3 layers acting as one. A simple heat trap built from nothing but farm scraps and stubborn hope. The kind of thing every frontier parent learned, eventually the kind of thing that kept families alive long before heating stoves became common. And slowly, the payoff arrives. The warmth returns to their backs. Their breathing steadies. The children stop shaking. For a moment, the storm outside feels far away, just a distant roar behind the walls of the cabin. But the night isn't done testing them. Even with the ground insulated, the wind still knifes through the log seams. Elias can feel it brushing the back of his neck, thin, sharp, hungry. He's bought his family time, but now he needs to stop the wind itself. The wind returns with a vengeance. It slips through the gaps in the log walls like invisible knives, sharp enough to make the lantern flame quiver. Elias feels the draft crawl across the straw bed, brushing the backs of his children's necks. Wind is cruel in a cabin like this. It doesn't need to roar to do damage, it only needs a sliver of space. And in a storm this heavy, every log seam becomes a doorway the cold can step through. Frontier families knew this danger well. Rain is one thing, wind is another. Rain soaks you, wind steals you. It rips heat from a resting body faster than most folks realize. Wind chill inside a leaking cabin can drop the effective temperature by 8 to 10 degrees in a matter of minutes. That's the kind of drop that pushes a family from uncomfortable into unsafe, especially when there's no fire to fight back with. Elias rises from the straw bed and runs his hand along the wall where the draft is strongest. The logs creak. Cold air pulses through the cracks in short, sharp bursts. His wife pulls the children closer, but even she can feel the wind cutting through the blanket like a blade. Something has to change fast. He grabs the thickest wool blanket in the cabin, a patchwork thing sewn over and over across the years, and lifts it against the wall. It's heavy in his hands, but the weight is exactly what he needs. Frontier families had a simple trick: hang a dense layer of cloth or animal hide across the windward side of the cabin. The fabric doesn't block the wind completely, that's impossible tonight, but it redirects it, forcing the cold air upward instead of across the room. Elias reaches for wooden pegs hand-carved earlier that fall and drives them between the log seams. He presses the blanket tight against the wall, sealing every gap he can find, shaping the fabric so it droops just slightly at the top. That curve matters. It forms a small barrier, a soft arc that catches the wind and pushes it upward before it spills into the sleeping corner. A poor man's engineering. A rich man's lifesaver. Then he adds a second layer, an old deer hide. It smells faintly of smoke from seasons past, but it's thick, dense, and stubborn. Perfect. He drapes it over the wool blanket so the two materials overlap like shingles. Wool traps warm air, hide blocks, and redirects the cold. Together, they create a makeshift wind wall that frontier parents relied on long before insulation became a word. The change is immediate. The wind disappears. The air grows still. The cabin warms by degrees that matter. His children shift, murmuring softly as the draft fades. His wife rests her hand on his arm in the first moment of ease since the storm began. Elias steps back, listening closely. The storm still howls outside, but inside, the corner he's built is calm, its warmth no longer bleeding into the night. But he's not finished. Not yet, because the last battle is always fought close to the heart, where heat escapes fastest and where the cold tries hardest to win. The wind has quieted, but the cabin is still so cold that every breath floats up as a pale white ghost. Elias watches his children huddled beneath the blanket wall. He set up, their shoulders twitching with each shiver. That thin fog rising from their mouths is the sign he feared most. The temperature is still falling, and now the cold is targeting the chest and face, the places where heat slips away fastest. Frontier families knew this danger by heart. Arms and legs could tough it out, but once the chest cooled and the breath sharpened into icy air, the night turned deadly. With no firewood, no coals, no hot stones, Elias has only one move left: capture the warmth their bodies can still make. He pulls his children close and raises the heaviest wool blanket over them, shaping it into a shallow dome, not sealed, just close enough to keep their breath from drifting off into the cold. His wife helps hold the edges down. The method looks humble, almost accidental, but generations of frontier parents used it. Inside, wool breath becomes a small hearth, faint alone, powerful together. Elias lowers his head beneath the blanket. Instantly, the world becomes quieter and smaller. He hears the quick breaths of his youngest, the trembling exhale of his wife. He slows his own breathing, letting each warm exhale thicken the air beneath the dome. Wool traps that warmth for a few minutes, just long enough for the next breath to replace it. The children slip their arms under the blanket, hugging their chests. Elias mirrors them, tucking his hands inside his coat and pressing them tight against his ribs. Heat gathers. The air grows heavier. The small dome becomes a fragile shelter carved out of the freezing dark. Gradually, the payoff arrives. The chest warms. The breath softens. The shivering eases. Outside, the storm claws at the logs, relentless and wild. But under the wool dome, the Turner family builds their final line of defense not with wood, but with breath closeness and stubborn human warmth. And in that small circle of heat, in a cabin with no firewood at all, they endure the night. Dawn creeps in after the long, punishing rain, a pale light settling over the quiet cabin. It's still cold, colder than any family would choose. But Elias and his own have made it through a night, without fire, without gas, without a single modern comfort. What kept them alive wasn't luck. It was old frontier wisdom: earth, straw, wool, wind, breath. The simple tools their ancestors trusted when winter came calling. A reminder that people once survived by understanding nature, not fighting it. And in the next story, we'll test an even harsher world, how Yakut families endure nights that drop to 60 below.